So 26 years ago, on this special day, I started asking the people of Tullahoma to pause as we salute those men and women who have served our country with honor and distinction. I'm pleased to join with Alderman Jimmy Blanks, Jackie Duncan, Renee Keene, Ray Norris, Jerry Mathis, and Robin Dunn in saluting all those who have served. When you take part in America today, you build a better America for tomorrow. And when you honor those who gave their yesterdays in defense of our country, you honor the very best of what men and women can be. And when you give your dedication and devotion to the commitment of being a citizen of this country, you make America a living memorial to their service and to their sacrifices. The liberties we enjoy are precious gifts, protected only for the moment and require a constant vigil. They will most certainly be lost should we ever turn our backs on those who serve in their defense. Today we will attempt to deliver a moment and do justice to the deeds of both the living and the dead. Veterans Day is meant to be commemorated both solemnly and joyfully, a day to renew our collective pride and rejoice in our freedom, a day to remember our glorious and costly heritage and make it work for an even more glorious and prosperous future. Today is our opportunity to salute the men and women who have served or are serving in the armed forces to preserve our freedoms and the men and women who died serving our country. There is not a person in our great country who has not been touched by a friend or family member serving the armed forces and are now enjoying the freedoms those friends or family members defended. Who are our veterans? They're men and women who feel an extra heart tug when the flag goes by. They love peace because they know the price of war and the price of freedom. They will always remain America's most honored citizens. They're our veterans. America home of the free because of the brave. Thanks everyone for being here today, especially our veterans. We honor you and your service.
Thank you. Father and our God, we turn to you in this hour, mindful of the men and women who have served and who continue to serve this great nation through our armed forces. For the unsung heroes of our nation who have risked or have even given their lives for us and for the cause of freedom. We praise you for their courage, their unwavering commitment, and their service. For our veterans gathered here this morning, for our veterans who are lonely, who are displaced in our world today, for those in a VA, for those in a hospital, for those in a nursing home. Tend to them as you have promised, assuring them that you are their good shepherd and great physician, and that you will never leave them nor forsake them. For those who continue to serve, we give you thanks. Bless the men and women who serve within our borders and who are scattered throughout the world. For those, O Lord, who have lost a loved one, a father, mother, son, daughter, that you bind up the brokenhearted with your comfort, with your peace, with your strength, and give to each one of us gathered here today renewed strength that we may serve you and serve our neighbor as never before. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Scott, and today I'm representing two women's organizations. The National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, and the General Federation of Women's Clubs. For over 125 years, these two organizations have served their communities, including honoring and thanking veterans, both men and women. But sometimes the women don't get the recognition they deserve. I feel it's appropriate to read a poem about women written by a woman. Side by Side by Jennifer L. Best, Specialist, U.S. Army, serving in the Republic of South Korea. Women have fought, women have died, women have served and served with pride. From the Revolutionary War and yet still today, women stand side by side with men in uniform and say that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States proudly in the air, on land, and sea. They will continue to fight for our freedom, wherever that may be. Their dedication to duty reflected their selfless service was so true. From private to general, these women did and still do. So be thankful for these women, past and serving still today. Be thankful that they gave so much, and include them when you pray. Thank you.
A grateful nation can never forget those here now and those gone before, who sacrificed and laid it all on the line to protect and stand guard at heaven's freedom store. Today we pause with honor and remembrance of all who served, for the memory of their sacrifice shall always be preserved. Freedom is an inalienable right that God Almighty gives. To deny it of another man destroys or creates a greater fight to live. Wherever freedom is deprived, there will always be wars to fight. Just as evil cannot dwell with peace, darkness cannot dwell in light. There are good, bad, and misguided among us, with homemade agendas and self-made decrees. But who am I to deny one's freedom when God does not withhold it from me? The strength of a nation lies in its values, its people, their faith and truth make them strong. But a nation that thinks it can stand without God is a nation that will not stand for long. Freedom's defenses are tested each day, but we must ensure they never fade, never fall. It takes God and a nation of dedicated patriots who vow to be vigilant to freedom's cause. And whether you believe it or not, all prophecies soon will be fulfilled, and everything prophesied will come to pass, all according to God's perfect will. There'll always be room for another hero. There are so many battles fought, but not won. We all can be a hero to somebody when we help them do what life left undone. America is everything life has to offer, the greatest and grandest nation of all. But it's up to each one of us to stand for what is right, so that liberty, freedom, and justice don't fall. God said in His love will bring us together. We've got to know and believe that somehow. We may have come here on different ships, but it's obvious we're all in the same boat now. When I get to heaven, I'll tell God about you. How you protected and stood and guarded heaven's doors. And when the Lamb and the Lion lay down side by side, it is then we will study war no more. But today, we honor you more than they could, but today we honor you, the faithful. So many gave so much more than they could bear, some more than they could bear. But every time our country needed you most, thank God Almighty, you were always there. God bless America, and America always remember to bless God.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank the stars above for living here today, 'cause this flag still stands for freedom, and you can't take that away.
Tullahoma. My name is Najee Payne. I am a freshman at Tullahoma High School, and I was invited here by Mayor Curley. Thank you so much for having me. I would also like to take a moment to remember all of those who served in World War I. I thank them for defending our liberties and allowing us to live our exceptionally wonderful lives. And not only veterans from World War I, but all veterans, the ones who came home to loved ones, the ones who are still fighting the war on terror, and the ones who passed defending us, deserve to be honored across America today. Growing up a military child, I have experienced unique and humbling events that have further strengthened my appreciation and pride towards our veterans. The spouses and children of our veterans serve just as much in different ways, as they relocate every few years and they are often separated from loved ones. I grew up with my mom, who served in the United States Air Force for 12 years as an aerospace physiologist, my brother, who is now 10, a wide variety of always changing pets, and, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce Colonel Scott A. Kane, commander of the Arnold Engineering Development Complex. He has been serving for 23 years, but most importantly, he is my dad.
In May 1918, a young man was inducted into the Army to become a soldier, just over a year after the United States entered World War I. He left Camp Pike, Arkansas on August 9, 1918, and he boarded a transport ship from New York City on August 15th en route to Liverpool, England. He hiked and rode trains to Southampton, where he boarded another transport ship to cross the English Channel to Tullahoma, France. He again hiked and rode trains to Le Mans, where he trained as a machine gunner for 3 weeks and learned trench warfare tactics for another week. From there, he traveled for 10 days to join the U.S. 79th Division in the Meuse-Argonne region, and then to Verdun, near the front lines. After 2 more days, Company Bravo, the 311th Machine Gun Battalion, left for the front, hiking 8 miles a night, sleeping on the ground, and then staying on a hillside waiting for orders to approach the front. On November 9th, he hiked another 2 or 3 miles to the front, waited 1 night, and then went for the front. On November 11th, he said in his diary, "We was to put over a barrage, but on the way, got lost and went in no man's land. Backed out, went to our position, was too late for the barrage. The Germans started shooting artillery at us. We stayed in the trenches, it was foggy. At 10 o'clock, the lieutenant came and said hostility would cease at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, all guns stopped firing." I was fortunate just a few days ago to get some excerpts of the diary of this young man, William Henry Carden. William Henry Carden is the father of William Henry Carden Jr., who's here with us today. William Henry Carden Sr. was one of over 100,000 Tennesseans who either volunteered or were drafted into World War I. 6 Tennesseans won the Medal of Honor for World War I. In all, however, 9 million combatants and 6 million civilians died before the gun stopped in World War I. 116,708 of them were Americans, and another 204,000 Americans were wounded. William Carden came back, but many, many more did not. Now those losses are unfathomable to us today. So today we'll remember them and many others who have served, but we'll remember where this day began in our history with the armistice 100 years ago. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today on this very special Veterans Day, 100 years after it was born out of the armistice of World War I. And thank you, Mayor Curley and the City of Tullahoma, for inviting me to talk with you and for inviting my daughter to join us as well. On behalf of Arnold Air Force Base, the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, and the Secretary of the Air Force, thank you for this community support to our veterans who live in and many who still serve in Tullahoma and the surrounding communities. And I thank you for your support of Arnold Air Force Base and Arnold Engineering Development Complex, as it has been for the entire history of the United States Air Force. Arnold today is essential to our military's superiority in air and space, which itself is a key to our entire military success on the battlefield. But there's no guarantee for victory. It takes the dedication of our veterans, our civil servants, our contractors, our families, and this community to produce aerospace power for America and to ensure we're unmatched across the globe. So thank all of you today. So on November 11th, 1918, an armistice was signed in France between the Allies and Germany to stop the fighting on the Western Front in World War I. took effect at 11 o'clock that morning, the famous 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. The U.S. and many allies recognized the first Armistice Day on November 11th, 1919. President Woodrow Wilson said that our reflections should be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory. It wasn't until 1938 that Armistice Day was an official U.S. holiday. After World War II, Randall Weeks, a World War II veteran from nearby Alabama, promoted the idea of expanding Armistice Day to recognize all veterans, not just those who died in World War I. And it took until 1954 for it to become law that year, Armistice Day became Veterans Day, and it has been ever since. It's a day to recognize all those who served in the armed forces. So this Veterans Day, I welcome you to listen to what I have to say, but I have to tell you, my audience is sitting up here on the stage by my side, and also sitting out in the audience. I decided the most important thing I could do today is to make an attempt to tell my son and daughter why it is that veterans serve. First, veterans serve because our nation is called. Like it called William Henry Carden Sr. Some of those 100,000 Tennesseans and the 4 million members of the American Expeditionary Forces of World War I volunteered out of a sense of duty, and some were conscripted. In fact, the Selective Service Act of 1917 was established to do just that, to raise an army for the United States in World War I. You see, the Army of the early 1900s was only about 100,000 strong, and the National Guard about the same size. But we Americans have always known that there are some things that are worth fighting for. And we're willing to fight when the things that we most cherish, our liberties and those of our allies, are threatened. In 1918, the United States made this decision to fight tyranny in Europe. In 2018, we have new threats. And again, the nation is calling on the Department of Defense and veterans to protect those things we cherish in the world order that protects us. See, for decades now, the United States and our military have been focused on countering terrorism and extremism around the globe. This was the priority, and the greatest military on the earth has been successful in countering this threat, and we continue to work towards eliminating this threat from the planet. However, during this time that we've been fighting extremists, great powers have risen and closed gaps in our military superiority that we need to address. The strategy for this is laid out in the National Defense Strategy of 2018. This strategy fundamentally refocuses the Department of Defense on not a new threat, but a new priority, which is our peer competitors. These peer competitors, the other great powers in the world, seek to change the world order and the model on which societies are built. And that model is not one that preserves individuals' liberty, and is a threat to our way of life. Dr. Michael Griffin, Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, in a recent speech in the local area, described this threat as existential, one that threatens the existence of our way of life. So our nation is calling on its military, among the other instruments of national power, to be a bulwark against these threats, and it will take the current and the next generation to answer this call. So the first reason veterans serve is simply they serve for their country and they answer their nation's call. Of those serving today, however, none are conscripts. They're all volunteers. The history of our volunteer force goes back to our own revolution. General George Washington requested the government be given the power of conscription, but the Continental Congress turned down its request. In the Civil War, President Lincoln imposed a draft, which led to riots in the streets. It wasn't until before World War II that we had our first peacetime draft, which ultimately provided about 2/3 of our veterans who served in World War II. The draft continued through the Vietnam War, but the anti-war movement led to President Nixon establishing a commission that recommended the end of the draft. In 1973, the draft law in the U.S. expired and Congress did not extend it. Then started the current era of the all-volunteer force. So this is the second reason that veterans serve. They volunteer. Our nation's men and women, sons and daughters, volunteer, and they volunteer for a number of reasons. And whether they join to get new opportunities in their life, or if they join because of a family legacy, whatever their reasons, they share a sense of service and develop a unique sense of duty. And whether they stay in the military for a career, or if they serve a short enlistment, they share patriotic blood in their veins and a love of this country. But ultimately, they serve for you, Nadia and Evan. Before I knew you, before you existed, I hoped that you would be here one day. And I knew what I wanted for you. Just as I know now what I want for you. I want the same opportunities I have still in this great country. I want the same liberties for you and your generation that I found and fell in love with in this great country. And I want you to respect those and to support those who serve for the rest of your life. Our veterans serve for you, our families, and our country. So William Carden approached the line and then left with his life on Armistice Day, 100 years ago. Today, our veterans still approach that line, and not all return with their lives, and many do. We respect and honor the dead and those who died in combat, and today we respect and honor the veterans who returned. So I had the good fortune of reading a bit of the diary of a World War I veteran who returned from the front. There aren't as many diaries to go back to. People just don't write them today. And there are many war diaries that have and will still go unread. What we can do, though, what you should do, all of us, is to listen to our veterans' stories. Ask about them, read about them, retell those stories. Most veterans are humble and private about their experience. I implore you, us, all of us, to take a little extra effort to just ask our veterans what they've done to serve. By doing this, we honor them, but by asking and listening to them, we can bring everyone a better understanding of what our veterans do and what they have done, and we can better understand what wars really mean and why veterans serve. Veterans serve because their nation called. Veterans serve because they volunteered to serve, to sacrifice. Our nation is engaged in war this very day, but I'm thankful for the relative peace and prosperity that we enjoy in our homeland. Let's all be thankful today for those who brought it, our veterans. Thank you.
Stars the shoes left behind. The question's been asked so many times, who's going to keep the flag high? Up in the wind as our heroes did to follow as they walked by, as we watched it fly. As they pass along in the midst of the song, someone must finish the rhythm and rhyme. The lessons they taught, the battles they fought, have fitted you for the shoes left behind. Wearing the shoes left behind, being a torch in the night, how can you ever measure up and match that blazing light? That's your legacy left for you to see, knowing that you would find in the memories all you would need to wear the shoes left behind. At times they seem so large, sometimes the pressure squeezed tight, but the more you walk the road they trod, the more the fit seems right. As hard as it seems, follow your dreams. You're one of the one of a kind. Embrace the morn because you were born to wear the shoes left behind. Yes, embrace the morn because you were born to wear the shoes left behind. I dedicate this to all of you folks out there, you veterans, you friends, you comrades, and my grandfather, Odie Lee Tidwell, who presented it this way, faithful soldier. Oh, when shall I see Jesus and reign with him above? And from that flowing fountain drink everlasting love. When shall I be delivered from this vain world of sin? And with my blessed Savior drink endless pleasures in. Now I am but a soldier, my captain's gone before. He has given me my orders and given me naked Lord. His promises are faithful, a righteous crown he'll give. And with his valiant soldiers eternally shall live. Whene'er you meet with trials or troubles on your way, then cast your cares on Jesus and don't forget to pray. Gird on the gospel's armor of hope and faith and love. And when the combat's ended, he'll take you home above. Thank you very much.
Present arm.
All right. Thank you for being here today. We honor our veterans. Please join us for refreshments in the room beside us. Thank you.